Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The city of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of this meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of meeting recording processes is posted in the meeting room. A participant sign-in sheet is available for use by any citizen addressing the council. Presenters shall approach the podium, state their name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The city of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Kaler.
Here.
Coulterman.
Present.
Singleton.
Here.
Tanius. Bergen.
Here.
Wilkin.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
All right, thank you. The first 5 items this evening make up the consent agenda.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes.
Oh.
Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Kaler, Tanius, Coulterman, Singleton, Morgan, 6-0.
All right, our first administrative item is consideration of a resolution to establish a master fee schedule. Derek.
Yeah. So, in your packet, you have the version, it's 15 pages. Basically, Greg and I were going through the resolution that established the rec and cemetery and all those kind of fees. And we recognized that we didn't really have a document that had all the fees that we've ever passed in somewhere by ordinance or resolution. So basically this is a labor of that, is putting all of our ordinances and resolutions, all the fees we charge for stuff in one spot, so they're not spread out in different documents. As you can see, we have some fees that are established like back in the 80s, as Greg mentioned the other day when we were joking around. Our bingo permit fee that was charged in 1984, that's when we established that. We have stuff that's been approved like a month ago, so this is just kind of all of it. So to have this in place just kind of gives us an idea of this is what we charge for all of our services and everything we have going on here at the city. We wanted to get this in place, and then we have some changes to go back and kind of work through this and look at those fees, such as the bingo permit, for example. Do we need this anymore? Should it be raised? Should it be free? Should it be whatever? But we need to do that with all of all the fees in here, just make sure that they're up to date, or they reflect the amount of staff time that goes into them. The ones in red are the ones that are going to be changed or implemented for the first time. For example, like for general administrative services at City Hall, and I won't go through all the red ones. We had been charging a fee for public records, but we never really approved it by resolution or ordinance. So this basically says this is what we're charging. It's never been formally adopted anywhere. Same for the library. They have those fees that were approved by the library board, but it's just kind of bringing these fees up into a document saying this is actually approved by the council.
It may have been approved somewhere,
Yeah.
but I mean, Derek has a complete overview of every resolution ever passed by the whole city dating back to who knows when.
Well, that's fun.
And systematically looked through every one of them, and then we tried to see if there was an ordinance. I mean, we flipped over every rock. I mean, even in minutes and stuff like that, but some of it just, who knows how they might have done it. So we're not saying they did it inappropriately. They may have just done it in a way that's hard to track where the original notation was, where we do a better job of guideposting backwards on the stuff.
Well, and moving forward, it'll be more convenient to be able to find these fees rather than having to look in different sections of the code to see when something was changed. And so I'm sure this time it was probably a pretty rough process.
Yeah, it took a while.
But moving forward, it should be a lot simpler. And so if anyone has questions about fees, they should be able to find them easier, or office, City Hall staff can help a lot more efficiently. So.
I would say this is just the beginning. I mean, as I mentioned before, we have to kind of go through and review all of them and just see where we're at. So you might see more of this down the road as we went through them. We're going to kind of take it section by section and go slow with it, not do all the pages at one time. So you might see more in the coming months about that. That's all I have on that.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the council? It is a resolution, so when ready, I would ask someone to introduce it.
I'll move consideration of the resolution.
All right. The resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2023-21. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tanya, Coltrman, Singleton, Morgan, 6-0.
All right, item 2, consideration of a professional services agreement with the Schemmer Associates for preliminary design services of the recycling center retaining wall and authorization for mayor to sign all documents. Mike, welcome.
Thank you all. Everybody's having a good evening. We do have here 28-page document. This project here is the backside of our recycling center on 7th Street between South and Ash. That wall has been, or the embankment has been collapsing with major rainfall. So the last couple of years have been relatively dry. We haven't seen much erosion. Behind the retaining wall, behind the proposed retaining wall location, behind the recycling center, in a vacated alley, we have a sanitary sewer pipe that serves those residents that face 6th Street, Highway 15. We also have a set of overhead utility electric lines that run down through that easement. Those poles have, from time to time, had to be straightened and supported after rainfalls, and so the project here is to find a solution for that embankment and then come up with a plan to design improvements and move forward and have that bank stabilized. So what we have here is a proposal to go through a few alternatives. We have outlined already roughly 3 alternatives depending on how high and how much of the land of the lot we preserve. And obviously the lower the wall, the more the embankment has to extend into the current parcel, and then of course diminishes the size and the value of that. So in part, hand in hand, not part of this design, is disposition of the recycling center. Of course that affects it if the wall's moved in 10 or 20 feet from its current location. So we've asked Schemmer to come up with a structural engineer to come up with a preliminary design proposal. There's 201 hours. The total amount for the design is $32,347.73. Again, this is for 30% design, and if approved, and if we go through that exercise of evaluating alternatives and select one, then there would be a little bit more engineering necessary for final documents, and then a public bidding process, whatever works entailed. There's 2 main types of walls we're looking at. One is cast in place monolithic concrete. They form it up and they pour it. Looks like a blunt concrete wall. And the other one is these large concrete blocks that are being installed. And generally speaking, you usually see just the narrow little portion at the top. And of course, the greater the height of the wall, the greater the thickness of the portion you don't see near the base. And so roughly a third of this project is geotechnical work to determine what kind of soils are back there and which is most applicable. A third version, which had been common, is the keystone block variety, and that is not weathered well. Freeze-thaw tends to erode those blocks, and then they need replacement after a very short period of time. So we're probably looking at one of those 2 alternatives and essentially 3 different heights in the alternative analysis with this project.
Thanks, Mike. Are there any questions or comments from the council? You gotta have to do something, right, Mike? I mean,
It protects, we do have utilities at risk, and the cost of doing nothing ultimately will probably be far exceed the
Right.
cost of this
it
project.
just gets more expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll leave a block of people out of power and
And it may
Wouldn't
leach
want that, wouldn't
well,
want
and,
that.
and it could leach into private property rights. I mean, if it keeps going through the alley or the easement, now we're gonna start seeing erosion into private lots.
So it's time to have something done.
it is, yeah,
Okay.
I would say past time, but yes.
Don't say that.
Okay, sorry.
Perfect timing, right? Perfect timing. Any questions or comments, or entertain a motion?
Move approve.
Second.
We have a motion, and a second, is any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Taylor, Tanya, Coltman, Singleton, Morgan, 6-0.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Item 3, consideration of an agreement with Clark and Anderson for design services of the Civic Center and authorization for mayor to sign all documents. Greg?
Yes, this is the actual AIA document with Clark Anderson to do the final designs of the renovations and plans for the Civic Center renovation. Still doing kind of that high level stuff right now, but there's some of it that they're gonna get into with some pretty deep technicalities. I think next week they'll start getting into electrical and other items. And so this just continues on that process. I think we have a CIP potentially teed up of 1.7 million, I think, this year. So what they'll do is they'll put together a package after the design of bids with alternatives in there. And we'll look at what the bids come back at and then make selections of what alternatives we wanna include or just do the original phase 1. But predominantly this will be a full renovation of the first floor of the old building, a HVAC renovation of the entire older portion of the building, an ADA connectability between the two buildings, and then maybe some bathroom and storage work in the older portion of the building, back where the old apartment was and some of that. So that's kind of, that area is the alternate area. Those bathrooms and that storage is probably the one thing that's on the chopping block depending on budget. So that's where I can answer any questions.
Any questions for Greg? If not, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
A motion, and a second, is any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Taylor, Tanya, Coltman, Singleton, Morgan, 6-0.
Alright, item 4, update on the Wellness Center. Welcome, Joel. We have 4A, discussion regarding financing options.
Alright, so we're not able to get it to you electronically as we're still working and getting some of these numbers, so that's why I gave those to you tonight. A little bit of an update, not much, everything continues to be on schedule. We expect after Thanksgiving that rebar will start showing up and footings will start being worked on site. So that is good progress, and they're nearing the end of major dirt work, so that is progressing well. But before you see just a big spreadsheet of numbers that Greg and I have worked on, the different financing options for this. Basically, when we were looking at what to do, we looked at 2 different options: the normal municipal bonding for the city, or working with our 2 main banks, Cattle and Jones, collectively to propose something, a model to us. So this has been kind of been a back and forth for a little bit, but in general, what you will see with the banks is it will be a regular construction loan to begin with, where we are paying or we are borrowing as needed per month. With the municipal bonding, it is more of an upfront borrowing, and so interest in general accumulates from the very beginning and a lot faster. With the banks and the construction loan, it will not. As you see on the top part with the banks, you can see Samson payments down at, if you see down the part interest payments, and if you go over, there's nothing until May of 24. That is when we expect to have to start borrowing, not till May. The cash that is in hand by Seward changing the game is, and these are as up-to-date numbers from their financials as we have, is that we will not have to start borrowing until May. That is what helps a great deal in the bank model. So as you see, the interest starts accumulating, and the interest rate that the banks, as of the beginning of November, was 5.22%. That could be different by the time this gets finalized. Hopefully lower. But they're proposing a 5-year that then can go into some long-term. But as you see, the next couple pages, that just accumulates. And we do have the second line from the top, which is the Seward Changing the Game donations, is when Shane Bach expects to be able to make certain payments. So there's certain times he's gonna be able to make larger payments than other times, because we know there's a certain grant allotment that's coming at certain times. Also like to point out that the Sampson payments stop in April of 25, so you'll see those stop, and their model continues with the construction loan through 26. And so that's a key factor I'll hit on here in a second, that is really beneficial. The reason that they did that is because there are still some donations that will be coming into Seward Changing the Game. So they'll be getting some money, so it won't just turn over to the sales tax portion. And so that is why in the bank's model, they continue through the 26, which is a huge benefit in the end to be able to pay that down before we go to long term. So in the end, with the construction loan going through 2026, there will be a price tag of $4.67 million that we'll need to long-term finance through that model. And so that will be at the beginning of 2027, we'll need to do long-term financing for that. The municipal bond got a little creative because he knew that we were looking for something like a construction loan to be able to kind of compete with the banks. He got a little bit more creative than just borrowing $12 million right off the top. And so you'll see on the bottom part, the bond amount in January is $5 million. So he is proposing borrowing $5 million then, and then in February, another $5 million. That's why it goes up to $10 million. And then in another year, there's a I think if you turn over the page, November of 24, another 3.033 million. And so that is why that 13 million number. So that's the total that the bond person is proposing to for us to take out. Now, how he is negating some of this interest, and all the big interest is, we will borrow that, and from what we have positive, we'll invest that. And so we'll be making money to combat the interest on that, so it kind of knocks it down a little bit. And so that it gets a little more complicated because you're borrowing money and then taking some and investing it back. And so it does get a little more complicated. There's a little bit more paperwork with it. But at the end, he proposed through 2025, so just two years of this loan, and at 2 years, we would owe the 6.26 million. If you see that on the bottom section, that's the final financing for the long term through the bonds. So up through that, does anybody have any questions to that? I know I'm spitting through this pretty quick.
You're investing through FDIC supported financials, aren't you?
With the bond?
Well, you're saying about investment.
Yes.
Yeah, we're investing in like a Nebraska class. It's a specific, that's an example of one. It's not the only one that's available. But in talking to our bond counsel, Mike Rogers, he's like, there's numerous funds that have high liquidity that you can put your money in and out pretty regularly on a day-to-day basis. And so you invest in those. The only thing you have to make sure is at the end of the day, when you settle up with your investment and your bond, you can't have made money. So we couldn't somehow have gotten the luck of the draw and got a 10% interest rate, and then we paid off the entire bond and we made $100,000. That's an arbitrage situation. You can't do that, but you can invest it, and you see we're ahead for a very short time, and then quickly, I think when you get into about August of 2024, we'll be behind because of the cash flow situation. We will have more money that will have been borrowed than what we're sitting in the bank to be invested. But it at least reduces that rather than your traditional bond where you're just paying a year's worth of interest and nothing is going against it because you've expended your entire investment in one fell swoop, and so.
And so what the bond is using is an interest rate of 4.15%, and then he's assuming
What?
right now of investing it back at 5.25% in those, which the 4.15 is obviously a lot better, but you end up, again, paying more interest over time, because you're borrowing a lot more off the top. So key numbers would be with the banks, they're through 2026, and then we're doing long-term financing on 4.67. Through 25 with the bonds, and that's 6.26 million. So if you go to the summary, the other summary sheet, this is what it would look like if we went with either of them throughout the entire process. So then if we did a long-term loan with the banks, or we renegotiated a bond to finish through. So it shows at the top what we would be, what our interest rate, what that loan would be. The Samson number is basically our construction costs, so it aren't gonna change for either one. That's how much total we're gonna have to work with. The construction interest, there's nothing there because it's woven into all of these numbers in the spreadsheet. That interest during the construction process. But then for the long-term interest, this is the big number right here. We did an amortization schedule for each one, and you can see there that the bank loan is the 847,000 number, and the bond number is 1.255 million. And so that is a big difference there. The pre-construction payments are things that we've already paid, mostly for design. Those are already paid, and then the cost of issuance is another area where the banks will not charge us as much for the cost of issuance, where bonds are much higher. So you can see the total there of what we figured, and then the difference and the savings in doing the bank loan. And so I have a couple different points on the bottom there. Through the bank model, if we were to go all the way through with the bank from construction to long-term loan, it would be paid off on 6/1/2033. And so obviously if interest rates go down, and after 5 years, we could have some savings if the interest rates go down, and that works well. With your municipal bond, it starts a year sooner with that long term, but we will not pay that off until January 1 of 2035. So almost a year and a half later. And I did looked at the amortization schedule, that the number, the 5,676,000 number, is where the bond is at after 2026. So I tried to do an apples to apples. After 2026, the bank loan is at the 4.67 million, the bond is at the 5.67 million, and so there's almost $1 million difference right there at 2026. And so, with the bank loan, it is done a year and a half sooner. So that's less time that the sales tax will have to be used for this, which is huge. And so basically, when we get to the long-term financing, the only thing that will be paying that off is the sales tax revenue. So all of the money from donations, from grants, will have been used. And so as soon as we can pay that off, it's obviously beneficial to everyone and would be much appreciated. So what we are recommending is that we use the banks for the construction loan. This is where we have a lot of flexibility. We don't have to, right now, sign up to go with one of them all the way through. We are recommending to use the banks for the construction loan and then reevaluate as we get to the end of 2026 and see what options we have through a municipal bond or a model that the banks could present to us. And this has been presented to them, this has been explained to them, that this is what we're recommending. And through the construction loan, and then we'll reevaluate to put ourselves in the best position possible and with the most flexibility. So we think that gives us the most flexibility, and it clearly saves money through the construction period with the bank loans. So again, a lot of numbers thrown out there, but any questions on going through that you have?
I think one of the biggest ones to note from Joel is the flexibility. Still to this day, Seward Changing the Game is out raising more funds, preparing for foundational dollars for the long-term support. But if some bequest in an estate, for instance, came upon us in the middle of construction, somebody says, "Oh man, it's really going on. There it is. It's going up," and then they had a gift, an estate gift planned. They unfortunately passed away. The estate gift hits. We're not penalized on paying interest on, say, $1 million gift under the bank loan because we never borrowed that $1 million then that magically showed up halfway through construction. We just don't ever request it through the construction loan, never paying interest on it for however many years it takes. On the bond, we've already borrowed that money. The bond is so short in this term, there's no other like prepayment options because it's a short-term bond anyway. You're paying the interest on that money whether you got it dumped on your head or not. Those elements that are involved in the cash flow and kind of the liquidity of all of this just makes the bank option that much better. You're seeing the benefit of it now. If any other money does go into the project in the short term that we didn't see coming, because all of this is all the claimed money. This is the stuff that we have financials for. We have locked up in contracts. We have in grants and foundation dollars that have been agreed to already. So we're okay with that. But if those other things come, then we receive even more of a benefit from that we don't in the bond. So that was one of the other ones. You don't want to bank on any of those. There's no guarantees. No one's going to magically winked at us and said something may be coming. We're hedging on what we know and what is concrete. But if it did happen, even if it was $100,000, it makes a huge difference when you add in all the interest and stuff over a given period of time.
We're also being conservative on what the sales tax would be monthly, because that could be, in 2-3 years, that could be more than what we're planning on, and then able to pay it off faster. So we have conservative figures for that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Any questions from the council for Joel? You need any action tonight as far as
Well,
on your preference?
yes.
I think it would be probably good to have the council give a direction to say move forward and draft documents in regards to bank financing, and then those will have to be brought back for a formal approval.
I will make a motion to draft the documents for bank financing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wolfie, Taylor, Tanya, Sportsman, Singleton, Morgan, 6-0.
You good, Joel?
I'm good.
All right, thank you for that. That's great. That's exciting. Next we have city administrator report.
Reports in your packet. I want to commend all the city hall staff, especially finance director Sydney Golden, Julie Moody, Kirsten, Derek, Mindy. That's kind of a whirlwind when you've been here a little over a month and then you're thrown into audit on our items and all the fun stuff we did with it this summer. But the staff did an incredible job. They were in and out in 2 days. And so they're ready to go, got everything they needed, and so hopefully we'll get that all wrapped up and back for presentation probably early spring, late winter. But the team did a great job. So that took up a ton of our time because there was a lot of things I had to cover too, since we didn't have a finance director that was here at the time that a lot of that stuff took place. Other than that, me and Joel have been working on these finances and running this 6 Ways to Sunday and trying to meet with bond counsel and meet with Kelly and try to have some meetings to make sure we're doing the right thing and setting ourselves up for success. Always with the focus that at the end of the day, it's about delivering the best product for the ratepayers and the taxpayers. And so that's what we think we've done. But that took a lot of time, and I want to commend Joel for all the work that he's put into this, especially his spreadsheet work. Like, standing on the shoulder of giants with that one. But he cleaned up a lot of my craziness where I'm just like yelling numbers at him, and he's trying to make it look right and work correctly. So we've been doing that. And that's kind of the big ones. Obviously, there's other things that have been noted in there. I've been sitting in on design meetings for the Civic Center, and that's pretty detailed work. It takes quite a few hours each week to get involved in. So I can answer any questions you have.
Great, can I provide an exciting update?
Sure.
We finally have no vacancies at the
Oh,
city.
yeah.
It's been 18 months. We finally have all our positions filled.
Oh, so you got your police officer.
Yes.
We have made an offer, so accepted, so. I thought that was exciting.
Congratulations.
Things that make your HR director
I
excited.
know.
Yeah,
Long time,
totally.
I can say that.
Totally.
I'm so happy for you.
A lot less stress.
Any questions for Greg? If not, entertain a motion to accept the report.
I'll move to accept the report.
Second.
A motion and a second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Kaler, Tanya, Colterman, Singleton, Morgan, 6-0.
Do we have any future requests for council agenda items or administrative actions? Seeing none. Jonathan,
Thank you, Mayor.
what do we have for upcoming events?
All right, a couple of quick updates and then some events. The wires were pulled for the new downtown speaker system. Thanks for the City of Seward's Electric Department's partnership on that. Really appreciate it. We're excited to have decent speakers for downtown for the holiday season, especially the parade coming up. We also had courthouse tree has the lights on it. The courthouse looks awesome. Appreciate Commissioners Zabrocki and others for the investment in that. Santa House was also moved on to courthouse square. Thanks again to the city for the partnership on that. Hopefully we'll get another 1,000 kids through there this year. And then of course that's all leading up to this upcoming Saturday for Seward's annual Christmas Festival, 13th annual. Feel free to spread the word. We've been putting it out across all of our marketing channels, but please pass that on to your constituents. We also have an event the Monday after that, on Monday, November 27th. Been working with Commissioner Hine on that, 6:30 to 8:30 in the Seward Civic Center auditorium. Being coordinated with the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy to share details about water and wastewater infrastructure funding programs. I think that's really an important one, obviously for the city of Seward, but also all of our municipalities across the county. Tuesday, November 28th, 10 a.m. I think I sent this out via calendar invite. There will be groundbreaking for Summit Contracting. That's a site directly west of Tenneco on Isaac Walton Road. You're welcome to join us and appreciate the support on that. Our organization is hosting a professional development luncheon on Friday, December 1st, 11:30 to 1 at Memorial Healthcare System's 3rd floor. Keynote speaker, Nurse Nancy Norton, presenting about the power of humor. The LB 840 special election ballots went out today. We've been working hard in partnership with the City of Seward, of course, League of Women Voters, Kiwanis Rotary Clubs, our wonderful local newspaper, to help explain what's happening with the ballot question. Also, we're working hard to tell the stories of our local businesses that have benefited from this over the last 10 years. Just a lot of great stories to tell. What I would ask is that you would really try to promote as much of that as possible as you're willing to. We have a lot of videos that we're starting to put out. We produce content there. We have signs if you're willing to take signs. We'd appreciate that as well. More than anything, we just want people to know that it's coming out. I think that's really, really important that we have an informed electorate. Let's see. So also, we have a campaign website as well, voteyesforlb840.com. Again, we're advocating, of course, on the chamber side as our board asked us to do that. Lastly, we turned in the creative district application. We were informed this past Friday that we were selected as now the 22nd creative district in the state of Nebraska. So good news to share. We got a $10,000 grant to start that will go to support the 5th Street Music Series, which is at the Seward Band Shell. Awesome music series that kicked off this last year. We really want to put it on steroids, make it bigger, better, in partnership with the Seward Arts Council. So we're excited for that to move forward. It also makes us eligible for up to a $250,000 grant starting July 1 of 2024. And we'll be prioritizing the projects that came through the Creative District survey that went out to the public. So with that, that's all I have. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Please register your votes. We don't care, Rich. I just wanna hear two voices.
I know.
Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkie, Kaler, Tines, Coltman, Seward, we're in 6-0.
Alright, thank you all, have a great night.
Happy
And have a
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.